Hi, my name is Wangechi. I am a counselor with Mindset Network, and today I want to talk about trauma. What is trauma? We hear people keep on saying I'm traumatized, he was traumatized, but what really is trauma? Trauma is the natural response to something that has happened, maybe all of a sudden, over a long period of time, that is devastating, that is overwhelming, that you don't know how to cope. Actually, we can say trauma is stress that has been accumulated for a long time, or major stress that you're not able to cope with. In our country, for example, in Kenya, we've had a few of those traumatizing effects. It's a bomb blast that has happened here and there, and even if you are not in the vicinity, it traumatizes you wherever you are. So we are not new to trauma. I think most Kenyans have gone through one traumatic event or another, a road accident probably, or things that happen that are beyond your imagination. You never imagined that such a thing that can happen. And I remember the first traumatic event for me. Now that I look back, I realize when we had the bomb blast at the American embassy when it was in town. I remember for a very long time I was not able to sleep well because when I got the news, I was in a particular place. So every time I passed through that place, I would feel like things are happening in my body. Little did I know that was trauma until later on when I did counseling and I realized, oh, that is what trauma is. So it is that thing that happens, it overwhelms you, you are not able to cope, it's just something that just comes, and it can actually cause brain damage if you are not careful. It's a disease. And so I want to talk about trauma because we experience trauma in many aspects and in many areas of our life. And if we are not able to cope with it, it doesn't go away. You cannot wish it away. It will accumulate and it can cause you later problems in later life. What are some of the signs that you are traumatized? After the event, because many times trauma is after the event, you are anxious, you feel a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of anger that goes on. When you think about an innocent Kenyan sitting in a hotel taking a cup of coffee and all of a sudden they are blown and they are dead, what does that do to you as a person? Even if you are not a relative of that person, you are angry at the people who did that. Sometimes you're angry at the owners of the hotel. Why did you have enough security? That is anger. That is, you cannot put a fingertip on who you are angry at, but you're just angry. So that's also another sign. Avoidance. Like I said, sometimes you avoid passing through a place. To date, even when the bomb blast scene was, it was constructed, now it's a beautiful building, there's even a park, there are some people who still cannot go through that place. There are still people who avoid that place. I've had clients who tell me that when you go to Kenyatta Hospital, where probably your patient died under very bad circumstances, they don't go through Kenyatta Hospital anymore because that was a traumatic event for them. So when you realize you're avoiding some things or some places, then you know there's something that is going on in your mind. Then fear, the extreme fear that you're in a matatu and then it bangs something and you're almost jumping through the window and it's just a normal bump which you never used to fear before. Recently when we were attacked, I remember I was sitting in a salon, and so that is when the news was flashing about what has happened. And one of the ladies at the back dropped something very hard on the floor and everybody jumped. And the owner of the salon asked, "Why are you scaring us?" I said, how have I scared you? It's just, this is something that happens on a daily basis. But that particular point, we were just thinking anything that, hits the ground is a bomb. So that is another sign. Then maybe sleeplessness and nightmares of what has happened and everything that happens startling you. Sometimes when you're dealing with people who have gone through trauma, you're very careful where you do the counseling because even a door that is banging can just cause somebody to panic. So those are some of the things that tell you that things are not working. Things that otherwise seemed normal to you now become a problem. You don't even want to hear doors banging. You don't want to hear even a car boom passing by here. You don't want to hear planes in the air probably. So that is how you know you have been traumatized. What do I want to tell Kenyans? We get traumatized by things that are not within our control. Because when we are attacked, there's nothing we can do about it. It's those enemies that come and they decide they want to destroy us. But are you going to let it decapacitate you that you're not able to carry on with your life? I don't think that is the right thing to do. We need to move on. But how are we going to move on? Talk therapy. Talk to somebody. Talk to a counselor. Talk to somebody who is going to help you move on to the next level. Sometimes we are able to cope very quickly, but other times it can be lingering. And it's that lingering that will necessitate you to go and look for somebody who can help you so that you can get out of that trauma. It's not just about being bombed. It's also personal trauma because you have lost somebody who is so dear to you. Some people get diseases that you're told it is terminal. That is also trauma. And you know, that trauma can even kill you before the disease kills you. So it is important that when you feel something is overwhelming, it has caused you distress, it is important that you talk to somebody who understands. Talk therapy is just that, talk. You talk to somebody who understands, you talk to somebody who is non-judgmental, because sometimes when we talk to people, they have solutions. Don't worry, that has happened to us, even wherever they were bombed and they are moving on. But your circumstance is different. That's why it's important to talk to a professional about the things that you feel are upsetting your mind. And that's why mindset is here, so that we can work with you and see where are your issues. I also want to talk about vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is trauma that happens to other people, not the person that is directly affected. Who gets trauma? Journalists, for example. You are shooting a scene. You are running with the camera so that you can see who is being bombed, who is being taken to the mortuary, who is being taken to the hospital. When you go home and sit, what do you think that does to you? You are a human being. You are a journalist. I don't deny that. Question I ask myself, who do journalists go to? Do you go to counselors? Do you seek help? Because you'll do trauma today, tomorrow there's something else that has happened and you're there shooting and taking information. Do you ever think about yourself as a person? Do you get help? I want to talk to the doctors. Doctors are trained to treat, but it so happens that sometimes that treatment fails and you lose a patient. You go on with your work. Tomorrow you lose another patient. You go on with your work. You're human. Those people you are trying so hard so that they can get better end up not getting better. Sometimes we will hear also it was the negligence of the doctor should have done this, blah, blah, blah. But you as a doctor, you know you did your best. Who do you go and talk to and say, I feel judged, I feel that I did my best, I don't know what to do? Many times, even other health care providers, we don't have that avenue to vent so that you don't carry the burden of knowing that, you know, and if you joke, those things are the ones that carry on and carry on and carry on, and you become so traumatized sometimes without knowing, and you resort to, you know, doing things that could be drinking, could be anything that can calm you down. So it is important when you are in a profession that exposes you to trauma, kindly seek help. You can even talk to colleagues. I mean, if you think that your colleague is not going to judge you, because here the key word is talk to somebody who is non-judgmental. Because if you talk to people who will tell you, yenyewe, you should have done things differently, they are not helping you. So the doctors here, the journalists, let's also think about other professionals who do continuous work, even the counselors, ourselves. You are continually talking to people who have been through so much trauma. If you are not careful, that vicarious trauma will also get to you because you are listening to so much information. You internalize that information, you take it home, and you know you have no avenue to release it. So let's also be careful about vicarious trauma wherever you are. People come to you. You are the head of the army, you are the head of the navy, you are the head of the air force. So when your juniors have issues, they come to you. Maybe you are able to help them because you have been trained. But who helps you as a person? You're not immune to trauma because you are the general. No. And I would urge that at least we have an avenue where everybody in this country is able to vent their frustrations, able to vent their anger, is able to vent the things that they feel that are boggled up in their mind. Otherwise, we are going to have a sick nation. So We have been traumatized over and over again, but I thank God because Kenyans are very resilient. We are able to bounce back. But you see, the bouncing back also should also be in the mind. Because sometimes you go on with your activities, nobody realizes that you are carrying a sick mind, you are carrying a fearful mind, you are carrying a mind that is full of anger, you are carrying a mind that is full of regret, of guilt, of, all those things. Let's find a way that we can vent those emotions before they become traumatic. Trauma can also come from everyday things. And sometimes you can be traumatized by hearing the same thing repeatedly. Your husband keeps on telling you how useless you are, how hopeless you are, how this and that and that. And it builds up slowly, slowly, slowly. Eventually, you become so traumatized that you cannot function because you have been told you are useless. Then you also tell yourself you are hopeless. Sometimes I tell people, when somebody calls you a cow, do you go and eat grass? No. So it takes courage to know that those things that you're being told are not you. They do not define you. Therefore, you refuse that trauma. But at the same time, if you're just in that house and just the only thing that you keep listening to is that person who repeatedly tells you those things, then obviously you'll not be able to get out of that. But if you talk to somebody who is objective, they will be able to tell you, that whoever keeps on telling you those things, that is not your problem. It is his problem. He's the one with the problem. So then you can get out of that trauma. I want to talk about children. Do children get traumatized? Unfortunately, children get more traumatized even than adults. But what happens? Who listens to children? Who will they go to say that, Mommy, I'm feeling traumatized, Daddy, I'm feeling traumatized, or the teacher? It is you to probe. The teachers are the ones who are going to probe and observe, because children are very good in hiding their feelings. But if you observe very nicely, you will be able to tell this child is traumatized. Even watch them play, you will find that a child is very aggressive with toys and you are thinking, it is normal. It is not normal. They are probably going through a trauma. I remember an incident where a child, we give them toys to play with because we are trying to understand where they are coming from. And that's why play therapy is very important for children who are going through trauma. And they would take that toy and just tear it apart. You give them another. And I'm observing and thinking, this is a message that this child is giving me. They would look for a knife, literally look for a knife and just rip the toy apart. An hour later I would come with a different toy and give the child, and the same thing would happen. And, later on we learned this is a child who had witnessed murder in the home, had seen somebody being killed, literally with a knife like that. And so it is trying to understand, what is this child saying? Children go through a lot of trauma. Even like when we do we are watching TV, you will never know the kind of trauma children go through when they see things are being bombed right, left, and center. So let's also be very careful and know that our children go through trauma. If possible, let's not expose them to those things, even if it's news. They have nothing to do with watching news. So if you think the news are going to expose children to traumatic events, don't let them see the news. If you think they've already been exposed, try to help them. How do you help a child? There are children counselors that you can take them to. Talk to them, listen to them. But also importantly, normalize the situation. Let them realize that things have gone back to normal and we can move on. Because if then they live in fear, then they will not be able to get out of their traumatic situation. There's one analogy I want to give about trauma. If you think about a wardrobe, if you pack your things very well in a wardrobe, you have put the shirts in one side, the trousers are in one side, when you go to that wardrobe and open it, what happens? You're able to pick the t-shirt because you know where they are. You can even see the color that you want to pick because you have arranged them nicely. Then you go to the trousers. You can easily pick the trouser you want to pick because they are well arranged. On the other hand, you wash your clothes and just throw them in the wardrobe. When you go to look for what you want to wear, when you open the wardrobe, most likely they will all fall. If there are many, they will fall to the ground, Then you start rummaging through them and looking for what you want to wear. Many times they even they have been crumpled up. So you might not even be able to wear them directly unless you are on them. It's the same thing with our mind. When trauma comes, it disorganizes our brain. It disorganizes us. The things you used to do normally become abnormal. The things you used to do with ease become very difficult to do. What do we want to do? In trauma counseling, what we do, we want to arrange your mind back like this wardrobe so that everything is in order the way it used to be before, so that when you open that wardrobe, things don't fall off. You know, you're able to just pick what you want. And therefore, trauma counseling is about organizing our life the way it was before the traumatic event started. It is not an easy journey, but it is worth starting. Thank you. I want to welcome you to Mindset Network, where we can work together. If you know somebody who is going through trauma, if you are going through trauma, we can help. It helps to just, because sometimes when you hear somebody has committed suicide, go back to the history a little bit and see what has been happening just prior to suicide. It is these things that we are talking about. It is trauma that happened because of ABCD. And many times it is things that could have been sorted if this somebody reached out to other people. You know, talking is therapy in itself. In fact, if you don't talk, then your issues become like a mountain. But when you talk, you realize, these are things that can be sorted. Come to Mindset. Let us talk together. Thank you.